6 o'clock, we're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to pause to seek guidance, please. All right, our mission statement. To provide, promote, or facilitate municipal services that meet the community needs while preserving, supporting, and enhancing quality of life for all. The next is approval of the agenda. Is there any additions? Yes?
I'd like to add an in-camera item, personnel issue.
Anybody else?
I had a letter given to me when I was in Bear River to my public meeting, and it's pertaining to asking or requesting pertaining to King's Transit. So.
So, under new business?
Yes, please.
If there's no other additions or deletions, could I have someone approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Is there a seconder? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carries. Is the minutes from council January 23rd, 12, is there any errors or admissions?
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 23rd.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Okay. Business arising from the minutes, Digby and Area Health Services Charitable Foundation.
I included that as business arising because we had received just a letter of response and thank you from the Digby and Area Charitable Foundation.
Yeah, that came in.
So there's no action item, but just that we did receive a response
Okay.
indicating that the budget most likely will exceed
Yeah.
and require the $250,000.
The next would be Councilor Miro. Any business arising or old business? Oh, I'm sorry, Maritza.
I just have a question. There stipulations?
The letter indicated that it would be, I think, that it would be to a maximum of 250
Just capital.
for capital costs, and it would be spread over 2 years and contingent upon them starting the actual project.
Okay. Just wanted- Sorry.
That's okay. Councilor Miro?
I don't have any.
Councilor Adams?
No.
Councilor Tudor?
Good.
Deputy Warden?
Yes. Just sidewalks in Conway. When do you foresee the tenders going out in the spring?
Well, spring, I would hope that we would put something out probably mid to late April to get some prices.
Because I think, yeah, if we get at it early, we may pick up some better prices rather than when they start getting busy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. And myself, I have under old business about trying to get it out right. It's gone for a second. Internet, high speed. We have some spots that are happening in Lake Midway, Little River, that they cannot get internet. They can't get it from the island. They're in a hole. What needs to be done is 2 towers need to be put up. And they were asking if there was any chance that we could send a letter, and I'd like to see a letter sent to Eastlink asking them to look at this area in Centerville and Lake Midway to Little River, these spots, if they would look at possibly putting up 2 towers.
I'll make a motion that we write a letter to Eastlink regarding the concerns of people, the residents on Digby Neck that have a lack of service.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. The next is under new business. Change of road request east Fort Point Road. And to me, that's a tongue twister. Ooh.
It is.
And this one came through Hubert Broom. There was maps. Name change from Weymouth Falls Road is highlighted in purple to Sisamoo Falls Road.
They're here to
That's
speak
the
on it.
second one, isn't it? Where's the first one? This is the request for a name change for the following road within the municipality. As per enclosed map number 1, name change for the section of East Fort Point Road as highlighted in orange to Doty Branch is highlighted in purple. The road is impassable from East Fort Point Road. This represents a cause for concern in the event of an emergency whereby emergency vehicles will enter from the East Fort Point Road. Accordingly, with regard to safety, we are requesting this portion highlighted in purple to be renamed Doty Branch Ashmore.
Offering Hubert here to speak to it.
Would you like to tell us anything?
Okay. This was something that came in and.
You can come up here.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
She wants you on camera.
That's what happens.
Changing out the filters.
You can push it in closer.
scared,
Yeah,
you
no,
guys?
that was a request that was made, and if you've been to Doty Road, you go down Doty Road, turn to the left. But if you go down Fort Point Road, you make that turn, you can also go right, it's a dirt road.
Mhm.
That's the,
There's maps on the table too.
Yeah,
Better?
there is maps there, but I understand better from him telling me.
it's East Fort Point Road, and
You couldn't get through.
And that butts into Doty Road. If you could get there, but you can't go through from East Four Point Road all the way into Doty Road.
Okay.
And ambulance services, I mean, people in the area know this. So if there's a fire or there was some emergency, I mean, and they say, we want to go to the gun club, whatever, and well, they go around Doty Road. Everybody knows this, but ambulance services,
yeah.
The fire department might know in the area where they're going, but the ambulance service, sometimes you
We have people from Halifax.
all over the place, and they look at specific maps, and these maps will tell them East Fort Point Road. Well, they're gonna go to Fort Point, they're gonna turn east, they're never gonna get there, when they realize it's around. So in order to clarify, I guess that's what this means, to change that into the Doty Road, Doty Branch, I guess.
Mhm.
And then change it to Ashmore. So if there was a call in that part, they would go to Ashmore, down Doty Road, Doty Branch. It's just to clarify, it does make it easier.
Deputy Warden.
Are there any houses on that road?
From the, well, yes, on both ends.
But-
If you're on the,
The Doty Road
Fort Point
is.
Road, you're gonna turn right.
Yeah.
And there is houses on that dirt road for a while. But those houses could remain because you can get there from Fort Point Road. The ones on Doty Road that are on that branch.
When you go down off the highway and you go down Fort Point Road, you come to a stop sign. If you make a left, it takes you towards Weymouth. If you make a right, it takes you towards where you're talking about. Are you referring to change the name from when, as soon as you make the right?
No.
You gotta go in there,
Just
wait.
from Doty Road.
The other way.
Well, like,
Towards Weymouth.
yeah, well, no, but like, I know, but you go down the road and then if you, as soon as you turn right, is that gonna become the branch road? Or you have to go in there a ways first?
That's gonna remain the same.
It's the other end, it's the other way in.
Or is that
Yeah,
gonna
but doesn't it go
change
through?
the whole road?
Doesn't go through. Counselor Amiro.
I'm very,
I might be able to clarify that a little bit. The Fort Point Road at one time extended along the shore, and today it goes from the foot of the Weymouth North Hill there, proceeds along the shore and basically ends at the Brooks Road, which takes us back up to the number 1 highway
Right.
of 101. Well, it does extend beyond that, and it's a dirt road, and there are some houses in there, but that's still Fort Point Road as such. Now, the section from there over to the Doty Road is basically impassable. So, and what has happened is left that section on the very end of Fort Point Road as an island there. And the community, to make it even worse, is Weymouth North. So to get to that community, to get to that Weymouth North, you can't even get there from Weymouth North. You have to go into Ashmore to get there.
That makes
Now,
sense.
there was a medical situation where the ambulance was going to Fort Point Road, and it delayed them about 20, 25 minutes getting to the person having the medical problem. So what we did as an interim remedy to the problem, we gave them numbers. There's 3 houses in there, 3 permanent residents in there. We gave them numbers off of the Doty Road. It's kind of an interim patch. And now we're to the point where highways, we've met with highways and met with NASCAP people, and they want the problem corrected. So it means a name change. So we're at that point now. The residents have all been notified and are in agreement with it. We have letters on file indicating that they wrote it. And now the final step is to have council's blessing on the road being changed. So technically the road is East Fort Point Road, and we're asking that it now be called Doty Branch. Okay?
Okay.
And we have a similar situation with Weymouth Falls. And that would be the second
The second one that I
application that we have
started,
there. The Weymouth Falls Road went from Weymouth out through Weymouth Falls and ended up at the Sissebu Dam, or just about at the dam. Well, again, that center section of road is impassable, and we have a resident that lives on the far end of what we call Weymouth Falls Road. But you can't get there from Weymouth Falls, nor the community or anything. You have to go all the way around. So again, it's a type of thing where we want to abandon that last little section of road name and give it something that's more accessible to everybody involved. So that one, they want to call that Sissebu Road, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Romero.
The East Fort Point Road, I'm very familiar with that. That's where I grew up. I've been through there many times in my youth. And I would have never known that that section on the Doty Road was called East Fort Point Road, but it definitely shouldn't be. Like, the Doty Branch is a much better name for the road, because for all intents and purposes, the section in between doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't
It's
exist.
there, it's still a government road,
But,
but it's not,
From
a
the
listed
ground, it
road is
doesn't
not
exist.
maintained or open.
so, does it take a motion from council?
Yes, and
So I
then we
would,
have to send it up, don't we?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
make a motion and then.
It
so
goes
I would
back.
like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations for the changes to the East Fort Point Road change to Doty Branch.
/ asphalt.
Yes. I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The other one that he's just mentioned,
The other one?
just a minute, and that is from Kirk, the Weymouth Falls Road, be named Sissebu Falls Road.
The other one I'm somewhat familiar with, not as familiar as the first one, but again, it is the same exact scenario. And it is definitely a safety concern, so I would move that we accept the recommendation of Weymouth Falls Road be turned, the name changed to Sissebu Falls.
Sissebu
Sissebu
Falls
Falls.
Road, yeah.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you both for coming
Thank
this
you.
evening, we appreciate it. And then we'll get to see how nice you look on camera. Next is the Digby Family Resource Center letter of support.
I'd like to make a motion that we write a letter of support directed to the Public Health Agency of Canada pertaining to the Digby County Family Resource Center.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The next is the Tri-County Women's Center. Cur-
Municipality of Argyle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, I'm skipping and jumping tonight. Municipality of Argyle, sorry. Resolution regarding provincial boundary review. Now, I have been told that there is going to be some action taken by a group working with the province on this, wanting it to look at this provincial boundary review with what happens with when you don't take in culture and that type of consideration. So I guess our concern is, or how do you feel about supporting this resolution or sending our own resolution?
If I can, I want to speak on this, but I want to speak on it from the Rural Caucus meeting, because this was on the agenda. And a letter came from Argyle to the Rural Caucus, and Warden Lawson from Clare actually spoke on this. Warden D'Entremont wasn't available to attend. The caucus looked upon this as a lot more than just a minority vote issue, like pertaining to the Acadians or to the black community. They looked upon it as being a hit against rural Nova Scotia, because this is basically, I mean, going to take seats out of rural Nova Scotia and put them in the metro urban area. And they're just looking at population, and they're not looking at anything else. So that's what's been perceived anyways. So I'd like to, make a motion that we do write a letter to the province pertaining to this, but it's got more to do with culture. It's got to do with the fact that rural Nova Scotia has to keep its voice.
Yes,
And,
I mean, we're saying here, community and geographical interest is also reestablished as priority
Yeah.
to protect rural Nova Scotia from losing their voice due to the current trend of your rural depopulation, is exactly what you're saying, and it's,
Exacerbate the situation.
I'll second the motion to write a letter.
I'd be glad to see that. So I'll second it too.
Because it impacts, it doesn't just impact the District of Argyle, it impacts all rural Nova Scotia. And actually, the numbers we were given at the caucus meeting also was that there are other ridings that are under the threshold of population, not just the 4 that they've looked at, but there's, I think, another 4 or 5. So, they're gonna, if they do their boundary review and they only go by the population numbers, there's gonna be a lot of major changes in this province for the next upcoming election. So, anyway,
sort of scary.
yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
I agree with it, just to say, I think it's
I think the letter should
worthwhile.
go to the Premier's office.
Okay,
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The next is creating affordable and supportive housing letter of support for the Tri-County Women's Center. And they're creating supportive housing models for high-risk communities in tri-counties. What is your wish? Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy.
I read this, and I support the need for affordable housing, but I'm questioning, should it not be, if there's going to be a letter of support sent, it should maybe go to the Minister of Community Services for Nova Scotia. But I'm wondering whether or not they're trying to overlap jurisdictions on who does what. And we've seen that before in other situations as well. And and I don't have any problems writing a letter of support, but if there's a financial ask involved in it, I'd have a concern, because I really feel that that's a provincial mandate.
Yeah, but to me, I feel that as a letter of support, yes.
Mhm.
As well, in favor of water support.
I'll make a motion that we submit a letter of support.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. I mean, there was a lot of activity that they're showing there.
Yeah.
I was glad to see Bethany Bend listed too. Next is the Town of Bancroft, Ontario resolution regarding global warming. This is a letter for the FCM. I'm just going to find it again.
Okay. I'd like to speak on that.
Certainly.
This is something that I don't support, because I do support the initiative, but I believe that we have a voice, and that is the FCM that's doing our work for us, and they're the ones that lobby the federal government for these initiatives. And for each individual municipality to write a letter to the federal government, I think we should be using the tools we have, and that's the FCM pertaining to something like this. And the way I read it, I didn't see where it meant the letter would go to the FCM.
See, and that's where I thought it went. I guess it was just the way I took it
Yeah,
when
it's saying, and whereas numerous agencies, including the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, NRCan, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, all recommend that municipalities plan for climate change and consider how it will affect them. And then now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft, as recommended by the Sustainable Bancroft, hereby urge the Government of Canada to take a leadership role. So they're basically asking every municipality to write a letter to the Government of Canada. And I really feel that that's the role of the FCM.
Anyone else, any comments?
Just one thing I can add, that, and I assume it's a requirement of all provinces in Nova Scotia, that is a requirement of the gas tax agreement. All municipalities have to develop a climate change action plan by December of 2013 and treat that as an amendment to their integrated community sustainability plan. So there is, I don't know if that's part of the agreement, I don't know if that's just for Nova Scotia or Canada-wide, but it does address climate change.
Well, I agree that we should do something, but I don't know.
No,
This is
I
something
agree.
different.
Yeah.
No action.
This is about giving political pressure,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily a bad
Did you
thing.
get that email I sent you on the climate change symposium?
I haven't looked yet.
Okay.
I haven't, no,
All right.
I went right directly to, and I'm in my delete box right now,
Oh,
where everything got deleted for some reason.
oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably what happened this afternoon when I was doing stuff.
Oh.
Okay, so we will do nothing, so we will go on. Street light requests, corner Morganville Road and Sissaboo Road. That was brought up to committee of the whole.
Mhm.
And the request is here now. Deputy Warden?
I went and had a look at the site, and there's a pole right by the stop sign. It's a very good spot to put a light, and I can see where there's a concern, where one road comes out to the other. And I feel that it would be important to have a light there, and I make a motion that we do so.
I'll second
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, did I skip something? Okay. The next, it says to be referred to budget, Westport Recreation, Fire Hall Auxiliary, Freeport Days, Freeport Community Picnic. So could we have someone ask for these?
I'd like to make the motion to move these towards the budget process.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Westport Volunteer Fire Department funding request.
As it is, I guess I'll speak on it. I got a letter, it's in regards to medical expenses for Clifton Moore, who was the fire chief for about 15 years down there, and the auxiliary has been trying to raise money to help him with medical equipment and medical supplies. There isn't a number attached, but I would like to move that we give him, we give the Westport, is it the Westport Fire Department itself, I believe, sign this? Yeah, Westport Fire Department, $200 towards.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
I can't support this motion because it's just not something that we can do at this, it's a municipal government. There are other avenues for them to have support, such as community services and through the Department of Health, and those are the avenues that you have to take when you have a request like that. And I believe that there's also a program there for them to get their gas and stuff, so I believe that that's the avenue you're going to have to take in regards to that request. That's my feelings on it.
Okay.
Usually home oxygen is covered by the province if your O2s are under a certain level, doctor's orders and palliative care or COPD, or I could go on for the different things.
Maybe I'll speak to you some more about accessing some of those programs and whereas you work in the medical field. Yes?
Okay.
I'm sorry, oops.
No, no.
No. Anyway.
I wasn't
Oh, sorry.
finished. And though I have full regard for Clifton,
Oh,
I
you
highly
wonderful man.
respect him.
Truly kind.
We don't usually do and can do support for individuals because it's not in our mandate.
There is one thing I wanted to add, though, and that is that whether they do it or not, I don't know, but it wouldn't hurt to ask the Fire Association to see if they could offer a small grant of some type. So you may want to do that where he's a fellow fire department.
That's a really good suggestion because I meet with those guys regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think that would be the appropriate direction to go.
Take this letter to them.
Yeah.
All right, that's a very good suggestion, thank you.
And some of those other fire departments are doing fundraising, there's no reason why they couldn't set aside, you know, a little bit of whatever they need.
Well, everybody knows this guy. Somebody said he's like the one guy in Westport's never done anything to anybody, so that's high praise.
Yeah, he's an excellent individual. So,
Are you withdrawing the motion?
I'll withdraw the motion then.
okay. Is it all right with the seconder?
Yes.
Is withdrawn. The next is the appointment of the returning officer for 2012 municipal election, Andy Moyer.
I so move that we appoint Andy Moyer as our returning officer for the upcoming 2012 municipal elections.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The next is King's Transit.
Okay.
Oh, I was thinking it was, never mind.
When I had my public meeting in Bear River, I had a lady from the community, Norma Wagner, present me with a letter, and it's pertaining to King's Transit and the wish to see if King's Transit could service Tideview Terrace. So I just want to pass that in, pass that on. And I raised it tonight. I told her I'd bring it forward to council. I do know we have scheduling issues, you know, time-wise, but I think it's something that maybe could be considered. She said there's a lot of residents that sometimes would use the bus, and there's other people that would go to Tideview to visit. And I don't know how much usage was taking place before from people getting off at the hospital and walking over to Tideview, but anyways, I said I'd bring it forward.
We have already discussed that with King's Transit. Right now, there is nothing they have any leeway unless they cancel,
Time-wise.
yeah, in time-wise, unless they cancel out a trip, like not a trip, a stop.
Somewhere.
And right now, we don't have one.
I'd still like to see if there is any possibility in the future to add that little
Oh,
bit of time.
they
or-
will. I mean, but right now, we've just started a new one for downtown, and there may, in the end, be up some freed up time. But at that point, because Was that about a month ago, Linda, that we spoke with?
We spoke with the managing
Mullins?
director, Ron Mullins, probably a month ago.
Yeah.
Well, within the last month.
And that was something that we brought up.
Personally, I feel that it's something that it would have great community service, great service to the community. I really do.
I think the other issue that was raised was the difficulty getting around.
Oh, yes, and that was
all
the other
those
spot.
buildings.
Yeah,
It is
physical.
probably at least a kilometer away.
Yeah.
It's a fair
Right.
amount of time that
Right.
would take.
Yeah, I know. It's twofold though, I guess, because it has to go through our municipality to get to Tideview, where it would service Pleasant Street as well. But, and she also mentioned that you could probably drive around the Tideview building with the bus.
No, that's their problem. They don't think there's enough space.
I don't know.
Well, that's
But
what he was
That
looking
was an
at.
issue.
But can I,
You don't think there's enough space?
That's it, because of cars parked, no.
The other thing I'd like to bring up on this is, I think that we should, or I would like to see us also explore the possibility of Transport Declare providing some sort of service to Tideview Terrace and link with King's Transit.
That would be a nice idea.
Because that would be possible, and it was a concern, it's not my concern, but it was a concern of King's Transit that the buses wouldn't be able to get in there, and I don't know, but they should, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a really good suggestion.
But-
we can bring that.
can I ask that we write Norma Wagner, pertaining to this letter and to say that, we're gonna look at options?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
We can
thank
do
you.
that.
Do we need any direction from the municipality for, like, to write a letter to Claire or to chat with him about any
No.
possibility for this?
No, we will ask the member on the board
We'll have a
serving.
meeting
Okay.
next week.
Right.
So I'm sure the board member will bring that up. Thank you very much, sir. The next is number 11, which is the $1,000 for data.
I move that we give $1,000 to Data for the hiring of the consultant for governance.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, Linda, where do we get the money?
We have money left over in economic development, and I think this certainly would
Could be,
fall
yeah,
within
yeah.
that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next is the CAO report leaving us?
Excuse me, I gotta use one.
Take the money and run.
Yeah, true.
The next is the CAO report, and it's the use of provincial lists for municipal election and electronic voting. So the first we would discuss is the use of provincial list for voting. Provincial list. Yes?
That's our normal procedure, right, is to use the provincial list?
Actually,
No?
no, the last election, we actually decided to do an enumeration, which I think ended up being quite costly and not the most effective means of gathering voters for the preliminary list. I think that was in the report that the returning officer wrote at the end of that election. One of the recommendations was that for any future, we would certainly look at using the provincial list for the preliminary list as a starting point.
All right. So I move that we use the provincial list of electors for the upcoming municipal election.
I'll
There's-
second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The next is electronic voting. There was different ones brought up. One was no change, use paper ballots for advance polls on election day. 2 was use of electronic and phone voting for advance polls, only paper ballots on election day. 3rd was use electric and phone voting for advance polls up to and including election day, providing 1 poll per district with paper ballots. And 4, use electronic and phone voting for advance polls up to and including election day, no paper ballots, but provide 1 poll per district with computer with touchscreen for electronic voting.
And there's a recommendation.
And the recommendation was 4, which I'll hear from the others, but I disagree with.
Okay. I'd like to say that I do support electronic voting. I think it's the right direction to go in. But I also am not really a big fan of 4 because I think we're going to get to 4, but I don't think we should be trying to get to 4 the first time.
Right.
And I really support number 3, which would have paper ballots in one poll in each district.
That's on election day. I
I
should
know,
have said just
that-
election
yeah.
day, yeah.
No, on election day. But I support number 3 because I feel that you need to introduce the technology to the residents, and but there's still going to be some people not comfortable voting by phone or by electronic.
That's right.
Solely. But I see us going that way eventually. But I think for this time, I do support going with electronic voting, but I would prefer to go with option 3. That's my opinion.
Martha?
Linda, Berwick did it last election.
Yes.
Did they go completely electronic?
I can't answer that.
No.
I think they may have had one poll within the town that was paper, but I'm not 100% sure.
I agree with the deputy.
I think, especially in the last election, I think it was very new. Like,
Yeah.
the ones that did it, no one had done it before, so they did it as more as a experiment. Now, this time, they may go the whole route and just do electronic, but as a first step, they most likely had used paper ballots as
Yeah, I
well.
agree with the deputy warden. I don't think we should go there immediately, in steps.
Yes, I agree.
I was liking number 4 myself, sort of, sit by the side of the pool or jump right in. And I don't think that phone voting is necessarily, I know there's some concerns with older people not being able to use it, but the older people I know all know how to use a computer better than me. And the phone voting certainly seems very simple, and electronic as well. There's older people nowadays that they've been catching on with the computers is like crazy, and also I know there'd be a little bit more savings with option 4 as opposed to option 3. It's not a great deal, but it's always nice to save a few bucks.
I don't think it's a saving. I think there are people out there, young, old, whatever, that don't have use of computers. I have people that come in and tell me they don't have use of phones even in my office.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
I mean, there are people that still want paper.
I don't necessarily agree with number 3 either. I lean towards number 4. The fact of people not having access to computers or phones isn't an issue, because there will be a central place that has the computer so they can go in and vote, right? If I understood it correctly.
That would be.
But it would be a touchscreen.
So I don't.
Well, and I'm suggesting touchscreen because it's for ease of use. It is very
So I
easy to
personally
use.
don't see it as an issue. If the rest of council decides that we should have one paper ballot in each district, I don't really have a problem with that, but I don't see any reason not to go with the electronic.
Okay, so I'm hearing 2 3s, 2 4s, and I'm a 4.
No, you're hearing 3 3s and 2 4s.
3 3s and 2 4s?
Yes.
It's their choice.
I said 3.
I said
She
3.
said 3, and you said 3. He said 4, and he
And I
said
said
4.
4.
Yeah, that's what I just said. You said,
No, you
Um,
didn't.
Oh, no, I'm mixed up too. I thought that.
You said there were.
You got it on tape.
You said there were 3 4s.
Has the motion been
oh,
made?
3 3s
There's
and
been,
2
we're
4s.
still in discussion. With option 3, I guess my question would be, if you just provided if you did provide paper ballots and polls, would you still want to provide computers in the polls as
No.
well?
No.
Okay.
And also in regards to my own district, there'd be some controversy on where to place it, because there are those geographic.
Doesn't matter, it'd be one poll.
I know.
Well, I mean,
I'm just
that's-
saying that that's a bit of an issue. If you stick it in, Westport or Freeport or East Ferry, there's going to be
Or-
ferries to
well-
cross, and there is.
But they have the phone if they want to use it.
Exactly, and I'm thinking they have the phone the whole way through.
I mean, that certainly count, I mean, these are just options. I mean, if you want to tweak it a bit or change it or.
Counselor?
If we go with number 3, with recommendation number 3,
Mhm.
I would still like to see us include the computerized or the electronic option at the polling station.
I agree.
Because that way you could see exactly how many paper ballots were used. You could get a better feeling, and you could get people more used to the electronic voting for the future. Because I do believe that's where the future, that's where we're going in the future.
I think it's the future, but I don't think it's today.
I would compromise on that, on what he said there.
I agree with Councilor Romero. We still have paper ballots, but people can vote electronically if they want, and I do see the transition going that way, and it would be a nice indicator to us as to how many people actually still want that paper ballot. And if you don't give them the option at the polling station, we're never gonna know.
Mhm.
So I think we should go with both at the poll, the paper and the computer.
I can accept that. Is that a motion?
We were just discussing it. I will make a motion now.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion that we go with option 3, but the change we make is that we also provide electronic voting at the poll. And there'll be a paper ballot or electronic voting at the poll.
Is that one poll?
One poll per district.
One poll per district.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Contrary
other-
minded? Motion carried.
Any other would that council authorize? And then there's the recommendations, and then there's the other motions that we need to approve a policy, and I'll bring that policy and procedure document,
Mhm.
and a bylaw. There's also a bylaw that has to be written for this. And the third one is to authorize the warden and CAO to enter into a contract with IntelliVote Systems. So there's 3 other motions. It's under recommendation option 4.
Option 4.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I guess we have to make those
Yeah,
one
one
at a
of
time.
those,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that the warden and CAO give them authority to enter into a contract negotiations with IntelliVote Systems to provide for internet and telephone voting systems for the 2012 municipal and school board elections.
There's,
I second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Next.
I'd like to make a motion that council approve a policy and procedure document for the 2012 municipal and school board elections.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And thirdly, I'd like to make a motion that council approve a bylaw to authorize the voting by internet and telephone for the 2012 municipal elections.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Just think my poll will be up here.
Who knows, remind us, I guess that'll be up for
I guess
the
it would be.
returning officer, is it?
Yeah. The returning officer
Yeah.
can decide with,
But I was gonna say municipal office makes sense for one. Okay, next is our meeting dates and reminders. Everyone saw,
I'd like to give my regrets for March the 19th. I'm going to be away. It's a bylaw and policy meeting.
okay. So, as we know, March 5th is no meeting, March 12th is committee of the whole, March 19th is bylaw and policy, March 20th is planning advisory committee, and March 26th is council.
I think I may have already done it, but I'll give my regrets for March 26th council, because I'll be away.
You did at the last meeting. Or I thought you did.
Thought so.
Yes.
Next is meeting action update. I don't really think there's anything except the age-friendly communities. I'm reading now March 1st. Capital and special project updates. Any questions or concerns? Last, or not last, next is the payables. Who would like to make a motion to pay
I
the
move
payables?
approve I move approval of the payables for January 2012 in the amount of $631,710.99.
So close to being an even number. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll second
Any discussion? All in favor?
it. Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Financial report, and then the municipal advisors report. Next was correspondence. We had one from the Commissioners of Nova Scotia, the Digby Area Board of Trade, the Healthy Eating Survey, TLC Animal Shelter, Nova Scotia Trails, and 5 municipal campaign schools for women. Any questions or concerns over the correspondence or information? Hearing none. Next, Committee of the Whole. Village of Westport, Bronner Island Center.
I'd like to table that till next month. The village is called a community meeting on their level. I want to wait till see what happens out of that.
Okay, usually table. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
No discussion is allowed. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. The next is the first reading of amendment number 12 to Schedule A Tax Exemption Bylaw 2000-02, Weymouth Amateur Athletic Association.
I move the first reading of amendment number 12 to Schedule A Tax Exemption Bylaw 2000-02, Weymouth Amateur Athletic Association.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, Wharf Rat Rally, support for full-time employee, paid employee.
I'll move that we contribute up to $20,000 for the position of a person to work on the Wharf Rat Rally.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. So those were all the recommendations from Committee of the Whole. The next is the Bylaw and Policy Committee, low income tax exemption policy for 2012-2013.
I move approval of the low-income tax exemption policy for 2012-2013.
You gotta read out what it is.
I do.
Yeah.
You got mine?
It's $20,000 with the maximum of 150.
Yes, read it.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I remember.
Pursuant to the low-income tax exemption policy number 2010, the municipality hereby grants an exemption from taxation operating as a reduction in the 2012-2013 taxes otherwise payable to the municipality in respect to a property in the amount of $150 for owners of property whose 2011 income from all sources does not exceed $20,000.
Is there a seconder?
I'd love to second this.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Next is the advisory committees. Digby Source Water Protection Advisory Committee, Councillor Adams, we have the minutes of September 2011.
Yes, and we had a meeting on January the 12th. They're looking at, we looked at some signage for year 1 and year 2 to be put up on the gates in different areas, size. We looked at sizes, and some of the ones that have been used in some of the other municipalities. We've chosen some of those. That was pretty well it. And then there were some other things, but we meet again, there's going to be a public meeting. I'm not going to ask you the date, but I don't think we,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't think we finally settled on one. We talked around some dates, but I don't think we actually settled on them. So they didn't write it down, so assuming we didn't. Just let me have a look. No.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions? Next is the Heritage Advisory Committee, Councillor Romero, Councillor Adams. There's been no meeting since the last report. The next is the Planning Advisory Committee, Warden Gregory, Councillor Adams, Councillor Tudor, meeting scheduled for March 20th.
And I just wanted to add that we are going to be advertising for a third citizen rep. The citizen rep, one of the citizen reps that we had has moved from the area, so it has created a vacancy.
Was that the young fellow?
Richard Fitzgerald.
Okay, yeah.
The next is the Police Advisory Committee. Warden Gregory, Counselor Adams, Counselor Amiro. November 8th, 2011 minutes. We have been having our committee meetings. Community meetings. There is one scheduled for tomorrow evening here. There is one in Tiverton for the 28th at Tiverton Hall.
29th.
The
29th.
28th tomorrow. 29th on Wednesday, sorry. For the one in Bear River had good attendance, and the other three have had poor attendance. But thank God we had the courier come. He went to Weymouth and he came down Sandy Cove.
I missed this already.
But I found at my meeting, even though there was only very few there, like 2 stood on the side and 2 sat at chairs, they actually had good things to bring forward, the concerns, so
So
it was good.
we're speaking on our meetings now,
I'm just mentioning it, go right ahead, yes.
because the meeting we had in Weymouth, we saw the trend that there weren't going to be a large group of people, so we set up the room in a way that we put tables together and had like a round table discussion, and it worked out really well. It was a nice meeting. And I just want to point out that Staff Sergeant Barrett made the comment that Weymouth was quiet at that meeting, and since then it's been anything but.
It was his friend.
He'd probably be reluctant to make that comment again.
Yes, he actually spoke to me Saturday night, and he said, and I said that at the meeting on Wednesday night. They changed from then.
Can I speak on that?
Certainly.
In regards to having the police go to the meetings, I think it's a great idea, but I also like to think that they should get out there more often. And by saying that, they probably should make contact with the Board of Trades or the village commissions or whatever that's in the communities, because going out once a year or once every 2 years, I think they need to get out there more than that. Because otherwise they don't hear what the community's concerns are. And I know, like, when they came to Bear River, there were some major issues pertaining to forestry trucks traveling down through the community, somewhat at a higher speed than the community would like to see. And, you know, it's a matter of getting the police presence in the community, but also making them aware of the issues. And if they were to do a little more outreach, I think that would go a long way to solve a lot of those issues. So, I think it's great that they came around and did these public meetings. I think it's really positive, and it gave the community a chance to ask questions. But I think they need to do it more often. That's all.
Good point. Any further questions for the police advisory? Let's hope we have lots of people out for the next 2 meetings.
I bet you there'll be plenty in mine, no doubt.
Let's hope so. The next is the Remo Advisory Committee, Warden Gregory, Deputy Warden McAlpine. There's been no meeting since the last report. Western Regional Housing, R. Fitzgerald report has been requested.
Yeah, I just for the Remo, I hadn't talked to the chair about this, but if you folks don't mind, maybe you've been having trouble scheduling. The last 2 meetings have been.
Daytime, doesn't it?
Yeah, so could I suggest maybe, and I don't know if this would be a good time for you folks, but maybe an hour and a half before a council meeting, would a Monday night early be a bad time?
Not for me.
Say
I can work it.
4:30?
I could do it on a Monday night.
Okay, I'm gonna mention that to the chair then, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Tell them to put them on
But see,
the
booking
list.
something at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the middle of my day does not,
I'll keep that.
yeah. Next is the Airport Working Group, Deputy Warden McAlpine, Councillor Adams, Transport Canada SMS approval.
Yeah, also, The airport working group had a meeting here on February the 16th with Jed Stonehouse, who's a consultant that's been hired to help us market the lands at the airport for potentially a fly-in development. And we had our first initial meeting with him on that day, and I think the guy is he's grasped, I think, what we're looking for. And actually today we got an email that he's already been reaching out to some of the publications in Canada, and potentially he's going to put an article out there. So, and I'd like for the Deputy CAO maybe to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, just briefly with Jed, I think one of the biggest assets that he brings to the table is he has an extremely deep understanding of the niche market, residential and commercial properties. He's worked on several large golf course developments and some very challenging residential developments, one being the Mountain Gap Inn, the sale of that. He also understands very well from a developer's perspective what needs and what they look for when they come into a business, and that helps a lot. And I think he's quietly working behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that he's doing that we don't even probably see. One of them is he's taken the approach of why spend money to hire and pay for advertising space in publications when he can spin off a nice article for them and have them feature us in an article. And this is what he's approached not only COPA but another national aviation magazine to try and have what work's being done by the municipality highlighted as part of a feature in there. So he's sneaky that way.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. The next is the Annapolis Digby Economic Development Agency, Councilor Randall Amiro. We have October minutes, January minutes, Managing Director's Board update, February 20th and 2013 business plan. Anything you'd like to add?
Dean kind of stole some of my thunder tonight. One of the big things that happened in our last ADITA meeting was that we did approve the 2012-2013 business plan.
1 year, not 5.
Yeah, for 1 year. And the board put a considerable amount of time and effort into developing that business plan, so it was nice to see it get approved unanimously. And the other big thing that came out of that meeting was the fact that Annapolis Royal announced that they have withdrawn their letter of intent to leave ADITA as a show of good faith to ADITA and the board and that
Annapolis Royal.
Annapolis Royal Town,
Oh, yeah.
as a show of good faith that they support the business plan. Now, the county of Annapolis, their letter of intent to leave ADITA is still has not been withdrawn. But the town withdrawing theirs is a step in the right direction, I think, and hopefully we'll get everybody together behind the new business plan.
Hopefully. Anything else?
No, unless anybody has questions.
I do.
Deputy Warden?
I read your packages. I read all the minutes and I read the business plan. And there was one thing on page 9 that I kind of took a little bit of issue with, and I'll read it. It says overall, okay, wait a minute. It says the outlook for Digby County is as challenging. They were talking about the downward population trends, but it says statistics show even higher out-migration numbers, which is a clear sign of an unhealthy economy. That's all true, but then it says overall, the region is not business-friendly in many respects. It is not a competitive environment. So, to me, I have a problem with that statement because if you're sending this business plan out to potential investors into your community, what kind of a message is that sending?
That we're not business friendly, yeah.
And if we're not business-friendly, what are they referring to? It says in many respects, but it doesn't elaborate. So, do you know where that's coming from?
Not in particular, I don't have it in front of me, but the idea of the whole business plan of ADITA was developed to make a business-friendly community. or communities. in
But
the
their
region.
they made a statement here stating that we are not business friendly right now. And if we're not, like, I'd like to know what they're referring to, because I read that and I was quite disappointed to see that comment there, because I know that there's been a lot of work done, not just by government organizations, but also by businesses in the community to try to encourage development in this area. And like it says, we're not a competitive environment. Well, I don't think any rural area of Nova Scotia is probably in a competitive environment, if, in that regard. But like, and it's talking about Digby County, so I was kind of wondering what that was coming from.
I think it goes on to outline some of the strengths of Digby County and the region as a whole.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll read the next paragraph.
Probably.
It says nothing less. Resilience is the defining characteristic of the region's business culture. Risk aversion is second nature in an area so long dependent on the boom and bust cycles of its traditional primary resource industries. That's fair. But I'm just a little concerned that when they made a comment about we're not business friendly in many respects, they didn't elaborate what they were referring to.
And I think that's what the referral was to, is that our common industry that we've relied on is in I guess you could call it a bust cycle at the moment, mainly forestry, but fisheries as well. They're rebounding a little bit, but I thought, when I listen to the way you're wording it, I definitely see what your concern is. But having been part of it when I read it through, I guess it was because I kind of felt I understood what it was saying, that it never really jumped out at me. But hearing you read it in the context that you've read it in, I can certainly see your concern, yes.
I'm reading it like anybody else that hasn't sat on that board.
Mhm.
And if I was a potential investor coming to a region and I read this business plan, that would be a red flag to me as to, they've stated right in their business plan that we're not business friendly. And so that, to me, I'd like to see that go back to the board and have a discussion on why that comment's even in there. And if they want to keep it there, then they need to elaborate what their intent is.
I can certainly take it back to the board.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay, the next is on the Bay of Fundy Marine Transportation Association. I have been sending out little notes and notices as we've been going along. Just wanted to remind you that with this, we did meet with Minister Paris, and that was a very positive meeting with this. It was confirmed by the provincial representative that Minister Paris appreciated the positive and polite approach by the association. We have been working on reports and taking them to the government. They have been meeting with Transport Canada as well. They've been over to St. John to talk with the St. John part. We have Danny Morrow was retiring, and Mark Surratt was elected to replace Danny Morrow. And he is to do with the processors, just so you know, that part of the company. They're looking at having a meeting with Premier Dexter. And then, of course, we're looking at the annual funding and what's happening there. We've been talking with Bay Ferries. Bay Ferries have been in line with us. They had, like I said, they did have the meeting with transportation. And right now, there has been no meetings for the last 3 weeks. Looking at another one sometime throughout the month, but we're not sure yet when. There was a meeting with Greg Kerr as well, and Greg Kerr has been keeping up. And of course, letters were sent to Minister LaBelle as well. Any questions on that? Okay, the next is the Digby Annapolis Development Corporation, Deputy Warden McAlpine, Counselor Adams, no meeting since last report. Digby Area Learning Association, Counselor Adams, January 25th, 2012 minutes, board reports February 2012, family literacy report.
We met February 22nd, and the minutes would pass on. There wasn't anything major. They've developed a strategic plan, which they went over, and things were moving along.
Did you have a question you wanted to ask, Deputy Warden?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
There again, I was reading your minutes also, and I noticed that Dell is looking at acquiring a building in Cornwallis. Have they not looked in the town or municipality to see if there's any appropriate space?
I think they have, and it's not this last meeting, the meeting before, that was all new, like that was the first thing I heard about it. They're getting a fairly good deal from ABCC, so this is the reason they're looking at that space. I don't know if I'm allowed to say too much about it until the deal is sort of signed, but I'm thinking that they have looked at quite a few of the places, and they're not, how can I say it? Mine's got mine.
Affordable?
They're not suitable, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe not affordable either, yes.
Well,
Because
'cause the
they've been
concern-
looking at, yeah.
A concern I have is that, there again, we're losing something else out of our area. I know it's gonna go to Cornwallis, that's not too far away.
Oh, it's not, it's only for certain programs. They're not taking the adult school up, they're not taking the career resource center or the learning growth. There are certain programs that they need room to run. So like the construction trades that they did a couple of years ago, so they need an area where they can do that. So it's just a sort of, it's gonna be a satellite office. They're not taking anything out of our area.
The only concern too I wanna raise is that, I know, I read the minutes and I saw the price that they could pay for the building and all that, but I think they need to do the due diligence in looking at the total cost to heat a building like that.
Oh, they are.
And not only that, but look at what condition the building's in, what type of upgrades and maintenance is gonna have to be
They're looking
done.
at the heating, they're looking at the roof, they're looking at all of those things, so yeah.
And I do know, like, when reading the minutes too, it relies very heavily on having the transit service provide transit to there. And,
I've discussed that with them.
yeah, and I mean, right at the time, we do go there, but, also, like, with the, when,
The why?
the Y goes and opens, I think that's gonna really give us a main reason to keep our bus service going into Annapolis County. Actually at the public meeting I had in Bear River, the warden of Annapolis County mentioned that they're hoping to have the Y open by June, so that was good news.
I did discuss that, I did bring that up,
Did you?
about the transportation. I said, realizing that we're sort of in flux right now, and we don't know exactly, but we're certainly hoping because of the Y, and if this happens, that the bus will stop in Cornwallis.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure that they had that in the back of their mind, that there's possibilities, so,
All right.
because they need to get their clients here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other? Okay, the next is the Digby Area Tourism Association, Counselor Tudor, Bay of Fundy Experience Center Advisory Group, January 10th and January 31st minutes.
We've been meeting a lot, especially with the BOFEX group. There's been pretty much weekly meetings. Things seem to be tearing along. You actually once again stole my thunder. You heard a lot from Mrs. Terrio and what's the gentleman's name again?
Dwayne Kennedy.
And Mr. Kennedy. Things are rocking along. We got another meeting tomorrow morning, and if anyone has any questions or anything about that, I'll be happy to answer. We've been focusing a bit on governance issues lately, though. For sure.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
The next is the Digby Area Recreation Commission, Warden Gregory, Counselor Tudor. There's the minutes of December, the Recreation reports of January 12th, the Sports Advisory Cafe afterthoughts, I will say the Sports Advisory Cafe went well. The big thing is, even though we lost some ice time due to weather, that we seem to be pretty well on budget. We've done really well with makeup. The free skating this year has been phenomenal. We've had good numbers out, which we think has been a great thing.
People from the islands have been going up for
Yep.
it.
Which
Young
is-
kids, which is awesome.
I mean, it's been really well done. Our next board meeting is going not to be until April the 4th. There's going to be none in March, and we're not doing another one in April, but of course, on April the 18th, or is it? There'll be invitations going out to the
Volunteer dinner?
volunteer dinner. That's our regular night. So that's going to happen then. We have chosen the provincial winners, but until they have definitely been notified, I can't give out those names yet tonight. And that we have also done I don't know if this is under personnel or not, but just to let you know that we did do an evaluation on our manager.
I'd like to bring up the Sports Advisory Cafe. I think
Mhm.
that that is going to be very promising results out of that. I think there's a lot of don't want to use the word; it's such a fad word, but synergy between these different groups, and we can certainly get some help for various things like training for referees, for example. I really like that. It was excellent, very well run.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Next was the Digby Harbor Port Association. We had a meeting last week, but we did not have enough people for a quorum due to weather with fishermen out and people away. Though we are working diligently on improving the wharf and looking at ways to get money to improve the wharf, talking with government, and our harbor manager has been doing an excellent job. He's been working with not only on our associations, but with the Industrial Commission. All I could think of Business Commission, Industrial Commission as well. So we're pleased with the way things are going, and you know, we've got a long ways to go, and if anyone tells us where we can get a few extra $1 million, we'll be very happy. We'll take any and every. Next is the Digby Library Committee, Deputy Warden McAlpine, no meeting since last report.
But I have a question.
Yep.
I'd like to know, has Tom given us any information yet to see how they're coming along with the canopy replacement or repair?
I did send him an email after the last meeting, and he did follow up with an email with them, but I don't think he's heard anything back yet.
Because that's been dragging on quite a while.
Yeah, and I think when I emailed him, he hadn't had contact with him for quite a while, so he was just following up with them and indicating what our position, or the board's position was.
Would we be able to, if we don't get a response back soon, talk to the town about maybe having a lawyer write them a letter or something, or referring this to a lawyer for advice? Because they just put that on the building and it blew off. And, I mean, you'd have to have somebody with some engineering or carpentry or skills in the trades to determine whether it was put on properly or not. But just by looking at it, it didn't look like it was put on right. And, well, first of all, they were supposed to drill into the brick, and they didn't. They drilled into the mortar, and it said right in the contract, right in the worksheet, that they were going to drill into the brick. So they didn't do that. So personally, I feel that they were negligent on their part on not installing it right, and now we're out without a canopy, and I just don't want to see it continue to go. This has been how long now?
Is
Probably been a
long.
year.
A year, yeah.
Since I started with you, I've been hearing every
Yeah.
few meetings.
What I'm going to suggest is that I talk to the town CAO, and I think it's perhaps time we have a meeting anyway,
Mhm.
because we want to talk about budget issues for the upcoming year. I know there's renovations and things that the committee wants to look at, so I'll have a meeting scheduled sometime 1st of April.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't want to see us forget about this issue.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Digby Municipal Fire Association, Councillor Tudor.
Most of that meeting was just sort of regular things, but there was anticipation towards the information that the municipality was gathering in regards to the level of readiness, I guess you would say, for the various fire departments, like for how their trucks are, average ages, and things like that. As you know, that led to the meeting here that we had at the municipality, and they're taking back that information, and they'll be digesting it, and hopefully, I'm optimistic that something progressive will happen out of this. Cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Next is the Industrial Commission, Deputy Warden McAlpine, Councillor Miro, minutes of January 2012.
We met on February 21st, and the meeting was basically to get together. We'd had a company come in from down in the United States called Flow Design, and they're looking at developing or putting not wind turbines, but tidal turbines in the Bay of Fundy here in the passage, or in the gut, I should say, with Fundy Tidal. They're in talks with them. So they had their chief financial officer came here, and we met with him, and he had meetings with Fundy Tidal as well. So I don't know how far it'll go. I mean, this company is one of about a dozen that are talking to Fundy Tidal right now, and I believe they're still doing their R&D on their turbine. So there again, but it's very exciting to see the interest in small tidal, and I'm hoping that within this year, hopefully maybe you'll start to see some turbines in the water. Actually, and also at the meeting, we talked about the upcoming 2012 conference schedule pertaining to renewable energy, and to make sure that we keep our presence out there with the industry. And there's a conference coming up in April by OREG, which is going to be, I think, an important one. And there's also one coming up in March that I think it's in March. I'm going to attend. It's a renewable energy conference, and Jeff Sutherland is attending that one as well. And we just need to keep our presence out there and keep the contacts with the industry. So there's 2 or 3 different things going to be taking place during 2012, and we're just going to see who can go to which ones. You may be interested in attending some yourself, but I think it's really important to keep our profile out there with the companies that are looking at putting turbines in the Minas Basin especially. So, and also to continue to talk to the companies like Irving and Cherubini. We're also at that meeting. We also talked about having a feasibility study done on a selection of a site. So we're doing an RFP to send out to get interest on getting a consultant to look at where the best site would be for a service center. And we're basically looking at from Port of Digby, the harbor, out to the ferry terminal, somewhere in that general area, and including those 2 sites as well. So, but so that's being worked on, and I guess that was the gist of that meeting. Is there anything else?
That's about it.
Yeah. Okay, the next, King's Transit Authority, Councillor Miro, we have survey results.
And The survey results came out of the people that filled out the surveys for us. There was, I was happy to see that Weymouth was listed as the second destination of choice by the riders that filled out the survey. I felt pretty good about that.
Must be the trout fishing.
Must be. And the other thing that I'd like to bring up is that we just got the January ridership results, and they're up 77% over last January. And I credit that to, personally, I credit a lot of that to the fact that we ran the promotional 2 weeks before Christmas. I think that it seems like that's carrying over to ridership, so I think council is to be commended for that. I think it was a good decision, and it's nice
Excellent
to see that
investment.
it's working out.
Good increase.
The trips downtown didn't start until February the 5th, so that didn't contribute to the ridership for January. And it'll be interesting to see how the February numbers, just word of mouth from asking around, I'm hearing that people are seeing the bus being used in town, but to what extent it's just, nobody really knows, so it'll be nice to see those numbers.
Any questions, Deputy
Well, I
Warden?
just want to comment too, I was really glad to see the numbers for January and how positive they were compared to what we've been seeing. And I do attribute to the 2 weeks free. And it made me think too that, and we gave away some free monthly passes also, but maybe we need to consider also for in the future, maybe we do like a draw a month and have like for a one free month ridership, and just to keep the interest there.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't think it would cost us a lot of money to do something like that, but if they had a ballot box in our bus where we have our own bus, what do you think of something like that?
I think it's something we need to discuss.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I do too. Well, 77%, who's to say how much of an impact that had on it, but it certainly looks like it was a positive impact. And hey, if it works once, why won't it work twice, or just to keep the momentum going?
Well, I think it's something that we want to look at doing again for the fall, this upcoming December.
I agree.
I think it was very positive, and I read the comments of some people had, their comments and the feedback, and it was very, very positive, and you don't really realize the benefits that bus provides to people, until you hear it firsthand like that. And so that's where I was coming from by having like a free month pass type thing. Like if you had a draw a month or whatever, it'd be no different than if you wanted to try to increase the usage at your swimming pool or whatever. You try to have an incentive to keep people interested. Every time you get on the bus, maybe you get a ballot. I don't know.
I think administratively, that would be a
I know,
little
but-
tough, like
That's what we
bus
need.
drivers
We
are,
have
yeah.
to look at that, but I think it's a nice idea.
I think any effort that helps increase ridership. One thing that I have been discussing with the manager and with our recreation manager is for them to go and visit the schools in the area and identify opportunities that the schools can take advantage of King's Transit during their regular routes. I mean, we're not talking about chartering a bus or anything like that, but if there's any opportunity within the schedule, especially now that it goes downtown, to take advantage, then they're
Whose
going to
idea
be
was
looking
this?
at that. Well, it came out.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Came out of a discussion.
Sounds wonderful.
With Bob Powell and
Ah.
myself, so, yeah. So that's an opportunity there.
I'll write that down.
Excellent idea. Medic, is myself, minutes of November.
That's excellent.
There was a meeting, at the same time we had a meeting, so I haven't attended, there's been no minutes come from that, and the membership list was sent out. The Senior Safety Committee, Counselor Adams, Counselor Tudor.
Senior Safety Committee met on January the 18th. Things are moving along as usual. Dawn is very busy. They've had some excellent turnouts at different workshops that they've had.
Can I ask that you forward the minutes to me for the meeting?
She usually does, doesn't she? And she's,
No.
I asked her. Okay, I will ask her again.
Or if you get them, you can just forward them on
Yep.
for your package.
The next is the transport declare, Councilor Romero.
Transport Declare has a meeting coming up on March the 6th,
Okay.
and I will mention the Tide View.
And next is Tideview, Warden Gregory, Councilor Amiro, and Councilor Tudor. We are meeting on Wednesday at 5:30. So there's nothing to report since our last meeting.
I won't be able to make that because of my meeting down in the Highlands.
I'd just like to report that, can't remember the date.
You had an orientation.
I did, yes. February, I didn't even have it. The 21st. February 21st, I went to Tideview Terrace for an orientation and was oriented on all of the bylaws and policies and all that fun stuff, the governance stuff at Tideview. So I just wanted to mention that.
And it was a fun-filled afternoon.
I was there for, I don't know, 15
Were you by
minutes.
yourself?
Yeah, yeah, the other person that was scheduled didn't make it.
Who
It was
presented
busy.
it? Who presented the governance?
Deborah Boudreau, the manager, is that her title?
Administrator.
Administrator.
The next is Upper Clemens Park Society, Councilor Amiro.
Upper Clemens Park Society met on February 16th. And as you can well imagine, it's not the busiest time of year for the Upper Clemens Park, so a lot of just the business is still going forward, starting to get excited about next season and working with the marketing, working with the marketing committee, a lot of work going on there to get ready for marketing the park for the upcoming season.
Could I get minutes from those two committees as well?
From the Upper Clemens?
And Transport Declare?
Okay,
Both of those, just.
yeah. Transport Declare hasn't met for a
Yeah, I
long
can
time.
send
them.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
I can send you one. All right. The next is waste check. Warden Gregory, Deputy Warden McAlpine, February 13th Navy package, and the RFB waste audit project.
You want to speak on it?
Yeah, you can.
I'll say a few things. The meeting was held, I had to chair the meeting as the chair was unable to make that meeting. The overview was that we talked about our operating budget for 2012-13 in draft form still. We had some questions pertaining to the budget, and at the next meeting we're going to go into it a lot heavier. But one of the things is that I do want to raise is that Waste Check has a surplus, and which is appropriate to have a surplus for ongoing daily operations, but I believe the surplus is at a point now where we can possibly not have to have municipal contributions for this upcoming fiscal period. And so if that does take place, we would save this year around $16,000. So I think that's something that we're, as your appointees on that board, will be pushing for that, because it is appropriate to have a set amount in your surplus, but when it gets to a certain point, then they shouldn't have to have it that high. So, but we'll be talking about that
At our next meeting.
at our next meeting. And also at that meeting, the green carts, just for information too, the bottom grates in the green carts, they have a tendency to fall out or stick with the frozen compost, and they end up going in the truck and you lose them. Well, originally, I guess when they put those in there, they thought that it was going to help with the smell and everything, but they found that over the years that it hasn't helped any. And so the board passed a motion to not reorder any more grates, and when they go, and we're not going to replace the little grate in the bottom. And I guess it's not, they're kind of inconvenient anyways. They inspect everything, and the stuff gets stuck in it. And so there's that. And then I just want to touch up on a couple things under the Waste Reduction Coordinator's update. And one was that there was a Harbor Authority Wharf meeting on January the 9th, and they're trying to address the issues of people illegally dumping in their dumpsters that are put on the wharfs. So there's signage that's been developed that will be placed there, and I noticed in the paper, local paper, they had advertisements in there too pertaining to that. And the Business of the Month program that Waste Check has implemented has been very successful. And January's Business of the Month was Walmart in Yarmouth. And to congratulate the businesses that have been recipients of the Business of the Month award, they're going to have a dinner on March the 1st at the Clare Golf and Country Club, inviting all the winners to that. And it's just another way for them to thank them, but also try to reinforce the program that they've implemented. So, I guess that's just me.
Yeah, you covered it. Good job.
Thanks.
Western Counties Regional Library Deputy Warden McAlpine.
They haven't had a meeting in the last little while, but I have a meeting coming up on March 15th.
Okay. And next is council reports. Councilor Adams. Councilor Romero first.
Most of what I've done has already been discussed, but I did on February the 10th, I went to Halifax and met with all of the councils in Nova Scotia were invited to meet with Jamie Bailey, the leader of the Conservative Party for Nova Scotia. They were having their annual meeting and conference. So I did attend that on behalf of the District of Digby. I really commend Mr. Bailey for inviting all of the municipalities. It was nice to know that he wanted to hear the voice from the municipalities. It was kind of a shame that there were like 30 representatives from all over Nova Scotia, and there was only an hour meeting to discuss things. And as you know, with that many municipal representatives in one room, there were a lot of issues to go over. During that hour, I did have the chance to speak twice. The first time I spoke, I brought up the concern of what I consider one of the largest concerns in our district, which is the Digby St. John Ferry. I will say it was well received, what I had to say about it, that I do think it's a threat and a huge issue, but I kind of got overshadowed almost immediately by the issue of the ferry in Yarmouth, because the mayor of Yarmouth was sitting right alongside of me, and the warden of Yarmouth County was there. So they kind of grabbed a hold of that and ran with it, but I did get the pitch in for the Digby St. John Ferry, and it was researched. He did hear what I had to say. The second thing that I had the chance to bring up was the healthcare issue, which I think is another large issue facing all municipalities in the province. And I alluded to the fact that I think, one, the Department of Health should be looking at how these buildings are getting funded, because they always say we don't fund bricks and mortar, but yet they expect the municipalities to pitch in to get these things, get infrastructure in place to attract doctors and health professionals. And the other thing is that it's falling on municipalities to offer signing bonuses if you want to attract health professionals, mainly doctors, into your area. And what that is doing in reality is pitting one municipality against the other. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the big loser is the taxpayer, the residents, because they either go without a doctor because somebody from a municipality that has more money to spend gets that doctor, or if they do end up with a doctor, they end up paying through the nose for it on their municipal taxes. So I consider that a major, you all know, I consider that a major threat to municipalities. And I will say that the reason that I never brought up decentralization of provincial government offices and services is because the first 25 minutes of the meeting was spent talking about that anyway, and everybody had brought that up. So that was really good to see, because that was right on my, I think that was tied for number one on my list of what I wanted to say, but it was already brought up, so it gave me a chance to mention the other couple things when I had the opportunity to speak, so.
That's great. And thank you so much.
Well,
Counselor Adams.
The age-friendly community, the core group has met on February the 16th, and we went out and solicited people in different areas of the domain, you know, the domains that were part of the age-friendly community. On Thursday, we are going to have a meeting of approximately 17 or 18 of us are going to be there. So we have some very, very interesting people. Everybody was very, very happy to be joining the committee. So for example, we're having Robert Balser, who's from the pharmacy downtown. We're having Yvonne from Tyview Terrace. We're having Clarendon for transportation. So there's a really good cross-section, and I'm really looking forward to that first meeting. Jacqueline's coming down from Halifax for that meeting, and it'll be held here at the municipal building. So we're involved in that. I attended the opening of the African Heritage Month here at the municipal building on January 30th. I went with Warren Gregory to Flag Day in Freeport. And I attended the gala dinner Saturday night for African Heritage.
Counselor Tudor.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One more thing. I did attend the conference on sustainable communities in Ottawa, and I'll probably bring a report at the end of next month at the next council. It was a very, very interesting conference. Warren Gregory and I were both there. I attended it 2 years ago, and I would say it was as good, if not better, than 2 years ago. It was, some of the organization was better. We did a lot of networking, which I thought was very, very important. And we had some fantastic speakers from Canada and from the United States. So I'll bring a report at the end of the month. That's it.
Okay. Counselor Tudor.
Been busy down there. I have the fair reports been submitted, and we're waiting for a reply. I'd like to thank Gordon Gregory for supporting that. Her willingness to go up to Halifax if need be, or maybe we'll be lucky the minister will come down. I'm working on a community garden with the old folks home and the 4-H club. Something's come up with that. The province has offered $500 for vegetable gardens at schools. And I was originally thinking of putting it at the old folks home, but across the street is the school. And I might be able to access that money, and everybody seems really interested. So I'm very hopeful. All I have left to do is talk to the administration of the school. 3 people grants for housing grants. The road at the end of the 217 has been repaired. They had a little bit of dirt left over from fixing the road at on the shoulder of the road of Lover's Lane, so that was really, really appreciated. I've been looking at for who owns what land for possible road expansion of Fish Point Road. The Armor Rock and Westport's come along. It was a major focus for when I first got elected, and I'm really glad that that bus had wheels in the end. I was a little paranoid. I was just going to get some, just not for Tiverton, but it all worked out in the end. I'm currently gathering letters on the drainage issues facing the islands. All the culverts have collapsed through the years, and a lot of people, not darn near all, not all, but lots, have collapsed. And every time it rains now, everybody's basements are being flooded. I've got 3 letters now, and I'm expecting another 6 by Thursday. This is very important. A real big thanks to Gerald Moore and Helen Teague for their excellent work when the sea urchin diver went missing. They really got their act together really quick up there, feeding everybody, and it was a really tough time for the islands. And when someone goes missing from the water down there, everything's dropped, and people all spring into action. I called for myself in regards to that. I called about 40 different people to try to mobilize as many boats as I could, and left messages at the post offices and local stores. And later on, they were still looking for boats, and I knew a fellow who was in the woods, so I went off and found him, and off we went on the boat. It was actually a long, hard day. It was, all 5 of us in this boat, all looking out the windows, not even a peep being made, for hours. It's a real shame, and this sort of thing happens too much down there. Flag Day was really good. We had Silas Taylor, a boxer. Right, as you can imagine, that was a big thrill for me. My boxing kids were all thrilled. They got autographs, and I've been invited up to his boxing club for my kids to spar with them, and possibly even a couple to compete. So that's really awesome, and I have enough money for that because Provincial Association has agreed to waive my fees because I don't charge anything for the kids. Shoulders Lover Lane's fixed, that's good. The huge hole on Bear Cove Road was fixed, also awesome. And a large hole fixed on one of Westport's lanes was fixed, that's also really happy about that. I seem to call poor Brian Foote every day nowadays. It seems one thing after another. There's been some loud driving in the morning. Someone complained to me. I talked to the person, and I'm quite confident everything's going to get better because we had a big problem with four-wheelers in Tiverton. I just went to everybody with a four-wheeler and talked to them, and it actually cleared up quite well. I was really happy about that. I've been writing reference letters for students. I have 2 done, and another one tonight I have to write. And I'm going to be starting a food bank on the island this Saturday. Kids who've been coming by for reference letters and help get into university. I've been unhappy with the level of volunteer service they have. More's better always. And so this way, instead of saying I helped the food bank, we created a food bank together. And I think that will look really nice on their resume. So I'm happy about that. And I applied for a community grant through the RCMP funding for the boxing club. I didn't even know what the funding. A member of the RCMP told me to come by and apply. So we'll see how that goes. I've also got lots of letters from a leaking roof. I've also dropped off wood. Problems with, like, for example, the roads in P-Jack, because there's been a lot of issues with all the rocks they've been putting in. But everything's going as smoothly as possible. And, I got a letter about Tide View, there's an administrative thing. So, and a few others. But that's good.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden.
Mine's kind of long, but
Oh, it's all right, we can live with it.
sorry, Gordon.
Me?
You were missing your race.
Oh, that's all right.
Did they tell me?
It's only the first time I've ever raced in the dark.
No. January 24th, well, since the last council meeting, I'll just give a real quick overview. I had a meeting with the Premier and Minister McDonnell to talk about issues pertaining to municipalities across Nova Scotia. It was a good meeting, a good initial meeting with him, and I thought it was very positive. It gave me an opportunity to speak to him on behalf of the municipalities pertaining to the MOU and the fiscal review, the town's task force, and the other initiatives that we're working on right now. But I won't go into detail, but I will, if anybody has any questions, just ask. On the 26th of January, I attended a town's task force meeting, and we're looking at the viability and sustainability of towns in Nova Scotia. But it's going beyond that too. It's also looking at how regions can work closer together and how you can develop better partnerships, and that's all going to be, that all goes hand in hand with a town trying to be viable. From that I drove down to attend a pre-budget meeting that Minister McKay had with Greg Kerr in Cornwallis. I caught the last half hour of that, and I thought it was really impressive to see that Minister McKay would take his time to come down here to listen to what the concerns are of the residents in this area. I don't know if they're doing this all across Canada or not, but for them to go around and do pre-budget meetings, I thought that was pretty good on their part to do that. On the 31st of January, I attended the African Heritage Month launch here. I thought that went very, very well, and they had a good turnout. No, that was, 31st. On the 30th, sorry, I had to go to Westville to do a presentation on the implications that the MOU had when the province decided to cancel that program. There was an interest by that council to get more information. And when I attended that, there was also the mayor from Stellarton, the mayor from Trenton, deputy mayor from New Glasgow, and councillor from Pictou Town. There was probably about another 10 more elected officials that attended that just to get information. Then on February 2nd, I had a meeting in Halifax with a lady by the name of Alice McCarron, and she works for LED street lighting, and she wanted to talk to me about the issues that we're facing with LED lights in Nova Scotia. And I asked, I'm still waiting to hear back from her, and I'll have to send her an email or something, but I asked her to find out more about the stranded assets and that issue, because it's an $8 million liability. And also, if you take your lights out right now and you have, you buy lights from them or another company, some people are under the assumption that they're not going to be liable for any of the stranded assets, but I don't know if that's the case, so that's to be determined. So, from that, on the 3rd, I had a meeting with the UNSM board. We had a good board meeting. Two things I want to talk about that we're doing that I think is really important. Number one is we're going to reinstitute regional meetings across the province. And our region actually is going to be from Digby right down around to Shelburne, Digby and Yarmouth and Shelburne counties, like the old region we had before. And we've got 5 regions covering the province. HRM is going to be included in the South Shore. CBRM is going to be included with the rest of Cape Breton districts or municipalities. And I think it's going to be good to get out there. And we're going to have these meetings take place in April. And the town's task force is actually going to be going around and doing a briefing on where they are. So Dave Corcoran, who's the mayor of Kentville, he's the chair of the town's task force. He'll be attending the meetings, and the first part of the meeting will do a briefing on that. The other thing I wanted to mention that we're going to institute is called Advocacy Days. And I got this idea when I went to Ottawa back in December when I took part in Advocacy Days with the FCM. We're going to institute that in Nova Scotia, and what we're going to do is the board will, we're going to send invitations out to MLAs to meet with them when the House sits again. And so we'll try to get in to as many of the MLAs that we can, but we've broken the board up into teams of 2. And actually later this week I have a board meeting, and we're going to discuss this at that time on who's going to be partnered and who you're going to see. So it's going to be given as an avenue to try to develop a better relationship with the provincial government and with all the parties, actually, because it's not just to go meet with the NDP party where they're the sitting government, but we're also going to be meeting with Liberals and Conservatives as well. So I think I'm hoping that this gives us an opportunity to get the municipal message out there and allows the 2 groups to come together and have a better understanding of what each role is. Because I think that that's been lacking a bit. A lot of MLAs don't know what the municipal councillor does or what our issues are. But so we're working on that, and then on the 10th of February, I attended the Rural Caucus meeting, and that's where I want to spend a little bit of time, because I think this is what really is of interest to us, is what's going on in rural Nova Scotia. And just to talk, I won't go into depth on everything, but I want to give you a highlight of what we discussed. We talked about the low-income policy to replace the cap, and what options are out there if we were to do away with the cap, what would take place, and where are we? And when I had the meeting with the Premier, I got a bit of a crack. I asked if we came forward with an alternative replacement of the cap, would you consider it? Would you look at it? He said yes, he would. So that was, to me, very hopeful. Whether or not we can come up with that alternative that they would accept, that's to be determined. But there's a CAO, there's an executive meeting coming up here right soon with the executive of the UNSM and the go ahead.
I can just interrupt for 1 second. Jamie Bailey, during our meeting, was asked the exact same question, and he answered the exact same way. That if he was in power and he was offered an alternative, they would certainly look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's 2 out of 3.
Yeah. Well, the AMA executive with the UNSM executive, we're gonna be having a meeting, and that's the number one thing on our priority, to discuss this and see where we can go from here. And the reason why, to me, it's really bothers me is because it's not for a municipality to generate more revenue. It's the fact that the cap has really shifted the tax burden from the higher assessed property to the lower assessed property, and it's just not, it's not fair. And it's not working. We also discussed the HST offset program, the Nova Scotia Power reassessments, strategic priorities. We talked about the, wait a minute, sorry, I'm getting sorry about this, wrong one.
It's okay.
We did talk about the cap, though. It's
Yeah.
on this one also. Region of Queens had asked about timely financial information from the province, so that when you're doing your budgets that you can prepare. Yeah. Electoral boundaries issue was brought up by the District of Argyle. Cost of regulation, municipality of Colchester raised that issue, and that's a really important one too, because the federal and provincial governments come up with regulations that affects municipalities. And I'll use one as an example that sticks in my mind is the water and wastewater regulations the federal government's implement. The cost of that is, you know, right through the roof, and municipalities don't have the money. So they implement these regulations, they've got to back those regulations or those, you know, with money. And so that's the message that's going to be going to the government on that. And the District of Lunenburg had raised an issue about the PVSC with incorrect mailing addresses and tax billing implications. Well, I do know that there's a single address initiative that's taking place right now, and it's got the UNSM, PVSC, Province of Nova Scotia, Canada Post, and EHS all working together to try to come up with one solution for addressing. So you won't have, you know, 6 or 7 people with a piece of it. You'll have it all under one house, and it'll be more accurate. And actually, it hits home because earlier tonight we heard about an ambulance going to the wrong place. Well, this is the primary thing that we're trying to avoid. And so, the next thing was inspection of construction activity. Now, this was brought up by the District of Lunenburg, and their issue is that it's hard to have enough qualified building inspectors on staff and to keep them, because a lot of these communities are having a problem. They get somebody trained and then they take off and go work in HRM. And East Hants raised that as an issue, and Lunenburg raised it as an issue. So what they had suggested is that possibly an engineer could sign off. Now, there was an engineer there, Sherman Embry's an engineer, but he said to, excuse me, Don Down, who raised this issue, Sherman said, you just can't be an engineer, you gotta be an engineer dealing with construction trades and all that. So, but what he was raising was valid. I mean, they felt that an engineer should be able to sign off on something if he had the proper training under that. Now, that's something that they discussed, and whether it's going to go anywhere, I don't know. But that was raised. There was an update on the town's task force, where they are right now. Then another one, too, this was raised by Sherman Embry in Shelburne County, and it pertained to the PVSC. And his concern was in how do they do valuations in the municipality when they don't have sales. Because you determine your valuation based on your market value sales, and if you don't have enough sales, how do you determine whether or not it's accurate? So that's something that they're going to have to talk to the PVSC about and see what they can do. The DNR garbage collection in provincial parks, that was raised by Dave Clark, the warden from St. Mary's, and his issue was that DNR doesn't, well, at least in the parks that they have, they're not picking up the garbage in the provincial parks, and I don't know if that happens around here or not. They were going to ask questions about that.
It would be nice if they sorted in the provincial parks.
Yeah, they only, in some parks they don't even have garbage collection, so that was an issue they were raising. They actually, St. Mary's had to pay to have it taken care of. So, anyways, that was that meeting. And, then on the 15th, I had my public meeting in Bear River, and I'd like to say that that went over very well, and it was a very good attendance. It was good to have the RCMP there, and I'm really thankful that Don Thomas was able to come to talk about the senior safety program. And it was really good, too, to see the Department of Transportation there, to talk to the community and hear their concerns, and there were some issues pertaining to the forestry operations, and that was raised to us at our last committee of the whole meeting. And I believe our CAO's done a lot of good work on contacting people pertaining to that, and I think that they're making progress on trying to cut down on the noise and the Jake brakes on the trucks and stuff. So that was good, and it was good to be able to go to the community and give them an update on what we're looking at for the upgrades to the sewer system in Bear River. And from that, we had last week, Simon, our environmental manager, did a tour at our site in Smith's Cove. I attended that with some people from the community and the Board of Trade, and they were very, very quite, surprised on the operation. Actually, they said, nice prime piece of real estate to put that type of a system on, but I said, well, you got to have it somewhere. But they were really impressed with the operation, and I think it went well just for them to be able to go there and see actually how we're handling the sewer treatment. And on the 17th, I had to go to Halifax and met with Minister McDonnell. He launching a website to try to get people more involved in elections, and the provinces launched that, and they've got it on their website. So Jack Novak was there as well, and I think he helped the province roll this out. And after that, the minister met with me, and he wanted to raise it to me that he's just appointed an associate deputy minister. So this person will be working directly just on municipal. And so we were going to have somebody devoted just to that, because as it is, the deputy minister of Service Nova Scotia has also got municipal relations, and he's got too much on his plate, and he just can't do it all. So it's good to see that they're going to put the resources there to work for municipalities. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that on the 21st, I attended a co-announcement in Cornwallis for KDC plans, and it was really great to see the work that they're doing up there, the progress they're making, and they're creating a lot of jobs in there, and people aren't even aware of it, but there's between 50 and 70 people working there right now. And with this building they've got and the work they're doing now, they're going to continue to grow. And they're right now in over 70 countries in the world. That's where their products go. So wow. It's pretty impressive. So that's it.
Okay. Since our last council meeting, I had a meeting with PLC. We should be expecting a letter of request coming. I then had a fun day on the 26th. I attended a 60th wedding anniversary. Then I went up and listened to Greg Kerr and Peter McKay, or I should say they listened to us on the pre-budget. I also met with a resident that day with concerns. I also attended the African Heritage Month regional launch, and that went over well. I then attended the EGSPA review, which was on the changes that are happening with environment. And it was an excellent meeting. The roads were terrible that night going up. And then the next day I attended the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, which is on gender equality, all equality of all peoples. And they, due to the road situation, there was probably 10 people that couldn't come, but they had turned people away, so their 60 had worked well. I also attended the Sustainability Communities Conference, and you will get a report. But one thing that I was like Counselor Adams, but I liked the meeting of, like, they had you meeting all the time, networking, which was a really good thing to do. And we met with Honeywell, and we met with different representatives, which were interesting to talk to, in Monster CA, and it was that. And but I think for me, you didn't know it sometimes, but some of the speakers were sitting there, and we were talking to them. Like this one said, "Well, I'm from Sweden." I thought, "Yeah, nice kid," and talked about, but one stuff from us, and we're talking, and you know, then you find out he's one of the speakers, and when he goes to speak, I mean, he blows you away. And here you are just thinking he's this little, young, I shouldn't say little, he was tall, but I mean, yeah, young, that's all. Another thing that highlighted for me was something they brought up on communities, on how we should be looking at community gardens, how we should be looking at gardens for ourselves, but also the growing of apple trees, pear trees, that type of thing, and how you can work with the community. So I will be bringing up something that I want to do forward, but it will be at the same time. I had a meeting with the other wardens to look at the possibility of energy and what we could do in the count and through from Yarmouth to Digby. We also had a I think it was really nice. We had people up who all won their passes on the bus, and they all won at March but one, and he won at May. But it was nice that they were looking at it, and they all comment how important the bus is to them. And again, Jonathan was right there for us. I attended the Island Flag Day, and then of course. I attended the Digby Area Board of Trade the next day. They're looking at concerns of what can happen in the area to improve economy, improve tourism, improve business. We had Deputy Mayor Mike Bartlett speak, and what he talked on was having in June a regional truck display. And it's on fire trucks and all different fire trucks from around the province. And I'm telling you, it sounded exciting. You know, and the board supported that. I then attended with another person at the municipal building, Janet Hopkins, which was on our navigation for new immigration, which was really interesting, and she has some excellent ideas. Our CAO was with us. And something that stood out for me, and it happened that day, was something they called STOP. And it's stop, think, observe, and plan. And sometimes I don't stop enough and do that. So it really highlighted for me, and like I said, I think we'll be working well with the navigation officer. And I had a curling bonspiel that I attended. I played 1 4 ends, and that was more than enough for me because I was so sick I didn't care. But I used the stick, and sometimes it went too hard, and sometimes it didn't go enough.
Really good.
Anyway, I want a hat. But we did it for dark. Councillor Amiro attended, as well as Councillor Jean Britton, as well as Bob Powell and the recreation person from Clare, and I've forgotten her name. Really, really nice lady,
Yeah.
and it was, yeah, it was nice. We went to Middleton for that. I then attended an organizational skills and how to improve that I felt was really worthwhile day. Then I went to Barton to the police committee meeting, and I arrived at the tail end, so they told me to get lost. Then, of course, we had hours in Sandy Cove the next night, and the next day I went to Yarmouth to the Grant Thornton on fraud for municipalities. And that, I'll be honest, I went with this idea I was going to be bored to death and was going to try to think about how I could shoot myself during it. It was so interesting that it was supposed to go for 2 hours. It went closer to 3 hours. And I didn't realize, I didn't realize it was past the time until, and it really was interesting. I had Karen send that all around. Thank you, Karen. But I will tell you, if they ever do it again, you should attend it because it was worthwhile. And I guess my problem is, I said, well, I trust. I mean, if you can't trust the people, and they said, Linda, that's the problem. People trust. You should always have, you should trust. Or you should have things in place to help. Which I find it hard, because that's just not my thing. But anyway, it was really good. I also then attended an RCMP teleconference on the RCMP contract. That's still working on. And then I attended the dinner at the Legion for the Black Heritage Month Gala, and that went over very well. Councillor Adams and Deputy Warden McAlpine was there. Councillor Tudor was unable to make it, but it went over well. It was a nice evening. And that took me up to here. So that's been my interesting fun. So, the next is an in-camera session, so we'd like to take a 5-minute. Before that, is there any questions? Okay, so 5 minutes adjournment, please.